Hello, I'm Frances Deegan Horowitz, President of the City University Graduate Center. Welcome to Women, a series of programs for and about us. I'm so pleased Heather Raffo is able to join us today. She is both playwright and sole actor of 9 Parts of Desire at the Manhattan Ensemble Theater on Mercer Street. At each performance, she becomes 9 different women with nothing more nor less than a piece of fabric, fealty to her Iraqi American heritage and her artistry. And make no mistake, it is very much a play and a gripping one, teaching us much more than a documentary ever could. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
You grew up in Michigan, the daughter of an Iraqi father and an American mother.
Yes.
An American.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
where did you go to school?
University of Michigan was my undergrad, and then I went to the Old Globe Theater. They have a master's program in acting, so I studied acting in California.
Did you always know you wanted to be in the theater?
I did, but it took me a long time to get there because my parents didn't really want that for me. So I think I knew from the age of 3, and it took until about 23 for them to finally, get that was what I was going to do no matter what. So.
Because it's an economically unstable profession, or?
Yeah, it was economically unstable, and they also felt somehow that I wasn't using my full brain capacity if I wanted to be an actor. They really wanted me to do something academic. Yeah.
And now that you've become not only an actor but a fine playwright, are they more pleased?
Yes, they are, actually. I think just having something on paper and that's going to be published and my name's on it, or something that they can, that's something more tangible, I think they are more pleased, yeah.
Well, I haven't seen the play, but I've read the script, and it is a very powerful piece of work. Congratulations. What did you do at the Globe Theater?
The Globe Theater was, like I said, a master's program in acting, and it was primarily Shakespeare. So they do maybe 3, 4 Shakespeares a year, and various other plays, and so we had both university productions and professional productions that we were involved in. And it was only at the end of that 2-year program that part of our thesis, in order to graduate, was to write a 1-person show. And mine, everybody's was only 20-minute version, lights up, lights down, very simple, but it got all of us students wrapping our brains around what it might take to make a 1-person show successful. And that was the inception of the idea for this play. It was about Iraqi women. It started with an artist. Subsequent monologues were people she painted, and then the woman at the end sells it. And so there's still a few monologues that are verbatim from that time. The bomb shelter character in my play is verbatim from that time.
And you've spent time in Iraq.
Yes, not much, but I have, yes.
And you still have family there?
I have, yeah, almost 70 relatives in Baghdad.
And phone conversations?
Phone, yes, as much phone as we can get. Oftentimes the phones don't work, so we're sort of at the expense of, or, whatever, if it connects that day, if they can get through, if we can get through. But we remain very attached in spirit. I think the heightened fear of the situation keeps us very bonded, even though we can't talk as often as we would like.
And how does your family feel about your having written this play?
I think the ones that know about it feel very proud and excited by it. I don't tend to fill them in on all the details, just because if we're lucky enough to get through on the phone, there's not much time to talk about a play, or a piece of art that's happening in New York. But I have one cousin who lives in Dubai now, and he calls the family more regularly because the phones just seem to, connect more often. And he fills them in on the details, and they get tickled. And I guess I was on the radio in Iraq at one point, and they heard Heather Raffo, Heather, that's our Heather. So they're pretty happy about it. But as far as a really full grasp or understanding of what I'm doing, I don't think they are. I've only had my parents have seen it, and one cousin has seen it, and he just loved it. And it's funny because when he went back to Dubai, he gave the play, the text, to a few Iraqi women friends of his to read. And they said, how does she know all these things? How does she know these things that you could only know if you lived there? And I thought that really meant a lot to me, that they felt so truly represented by it.
And how did you know all of these
I don't know how I knew. I honestly, I don't know. I think that, I think writing and acting, which is my primary trade, is a muscle of channeling. You just kind of, you work on technique, but then at the end of the day, you let go and let something move through you in order to embody a character. And I think that I approached writing like that. I did technique, I did research, but then I let something beyond me work with me. And it really felt like what I was doing was that we went to Iraq when I was 4, I went back when I was 23. A few of my family had come in between that time. I'd talked to them on the phone. I'd read everything I could read. I read newspapers. I read books. I talked to every Iraqi I could talk to. They weren't formal interviews. It was just, having lunches or dinners or loving people. And it sort of, when it came time to write characters, I could take the factual nuts and bolts of what needed to happen. A girl who accidentally turned her father in, which is a common story to have a child.
When Saddam Hussein
when Saddam Hussein was in power, it was very common for children to be at school and accidentally, inadvertently say something about Saddam Hussein, and then suddenly the parents disappeared. Parents would either oftentimes have to tell their children, don't say these things, what we talk about at home you cannot say in front of anyone else, or they would just live a lie in front of their child, and so that the child would never have that opportunity to misspeak. They would literally allow their child to sing all the songs to Saddam Hussein in praise, sing, happy things, say things about him at home that were pleasurable, even though in their hearts they knew they. So in that sense, I knew that was a very common story of a child inadvertently getting their father or mother arrested and killed. But then all the nuts and bolts of that little girl's story in my play come from a lot of how I felt when I was there when I was 4, sleeping under the stars, and my father being Mr. Math and Science, and just kind of, so it.
Your father is a mathematician?
He's a civil engineer, but his brain is just full of numbers all the time in every possible way, and I can't think that way. So I'm utterly amazed by it, because I think there was my brother's very good at math as well, and there was one point where I won a math competition because I had to show my dad I could do it, and we would study these math problems. He would just do story problems driving in the car. That was his idea of entertainment, and I couldn't figure out why I couldn't go to ballet class or do something girly.
Well, you picked up the concept of entertainment.
Well, yeah.
The name of this play is 9 Parts of Desire.
Yes.
Where does that come from?
It comes from a quote by Ali ibn Abu Talib, who was the husband of Fatima, who is the daughter of Muhammad. And the quote, he was the Shia leader, and that was my particular interest in that quote. The quote in full is, God created sexual desire in 10 parts. He gave 9 to women and 1 to men. And there's been a lot of Iraqis I talk to will say that the Iraqi psyche is a Shia psyche across the board, whether they're Sunni Christian, various sects, Turkoman, whatever, that it's a Shia psyche. So, well, what is that about, and what does that mean? So I kind of dove into a little bit of what a Shia psyche might be, and that quote was living in there in a very kind of funny way. I mean, to tell you the truth, when I read the quote for the first time, Geraldine Brooks wrote a beautiful book called 9 Parts of Desire, and I read the quote in full in her book, and I just laughed out loud. I thought it was funny. I just thought, that just tickled me. And the quote used to be referenced in the play, but now it really draws on the fact that each of these women is dealing from a primal need of something that they want, and in a non-victim-like way that they're going for at every moment. They never stop with their needs and wants, but in an active pursuit of it. And that's what I think is unique to these characters in the play. I think many people coming to see the show think, oh, it's a play about Iraqi women, they must all be victims, they're all wearing a veil, or they're all... And I don't feel like any of the women in my play fit that stereotype.
So you chose 9 women, and then you built a character around each of these. Some of them are composites of people you really knew, and some are not.
Yes. Yes, they're all the facts are based in things that I was told or experienced, or are, you know, actual facts of there was a bomb shelter, it got hit, you know, these kind of things. But the characters, oftentimes what I did after living with different women is I kind of came home, and I liken it to writing a song. There was a woman who was a Bedouin who lived in London, and I went and stayed with her for months and just got to know her, really got to love her. And when I came home, it's not like I had a tape recorder. I didn't have anything that was verbatim of hers. I just felt like I was writing her song. I kind of just wrote something that felt like all the things she was trying to express to me. And I read it back to her. And she says, no, it's perfect. I said, well, no, but remember, I know I got that fact wrong, because when I was trying to write that thing that your mother sings to you, I just made it up off the top of my head because I couldn't remember what your mother would sing to you. So what was that song? She goes, no, that song's perfect. And I said, well, come on, I want to know. She goes, no, you've got it. You've got it just right. So I think somehow it's in aura. I've got it just right for her. She felt that that was absolutely representative.
And she's in exile. She has been in exile.
Yeah.
And one senses ambivalence about that. That she is not there to have taken all the experiences and is a critic, and yet she couldn't be there.
Right, right.
And the other women in the play?
Some are very attached to Iraq and could never leave.
Right.
Ever. Some are considering leaving at the moment, and the ones that are out, even ones that would refuse to go back, it's something that I discovered in my research, in just being half Iraqi but being so American, is that there's something there that draws you and ties you to that place.
Is it the ancientness of the history?
I think so. That's my take. That's my belief. I mean, because the people there walk around with a consciousness that is so old. I mean, you know, Babylon's just down the road. These things, they're just around the corner. I mean, I can't tell you how many times the women would say, oh yeah, when God was a woman. Well, when was that exactly? Oh, well, you know, the statues over there in the, you know, the museum, or what, you know, I mean, that's just the way they think was, oh yeah, you know, it's Sumerian times when there were gods and gods. They carry that with them all the time. It's not new knowledge to them. It's something that's deeply in their blood. And I found in an odd way that I carried that. Even though I didn't have formal training in Iraqi heritage, culture, or anything in a sense of formal studies. I just carried this sense of something deep and very old, and sort of found my real bonding with the Iraqi women that I met.
And you know, anyone who comes to see this play is going to leave surprised in some ways that it has no political point of view.
Yes, well,
I mean, did you intend that?
Depends on what you mean by political point of view. If you mean for or against the war, it doesn't.
Right.
Because Iraqis are on all sides of the issues. They realized that they had it bad and that they could benefit. They realized that what they have now is pretty bad, but they could benefit. A lot of them have hope. They're very resilient people. Women are fighting for status quo. Women had more rights prior to this invasion.
In an odd way.
Well,
right.
A police state, and it was a secular police state, so nobody was really walking around. It wasn't, you know, covered and not being able to hold down a job. So, I mean, they could go out till 2 a.m. and for the most part be safe. And now, I mean, women don't leave the house. Women of all religions don't leave the house without a headscarf on, without, you know, being feared of being kidnapped just walking down the street. This is a time frame. They hope it won't always be that way. But there is a political message in the play, I feel, that's constantly working on an undercurrent, which is that we, as Americans, as the West, supported Saddam in the first place. And I think that's a crime. It's a crime to support brutal dictators in the first place. The other deepest undercurrent is where is the balance of masculine and feminine in all of our societies? The women there are saying, are you free in America? Are you women free in America? Are you really? What are you really doing that we can't do, that we don't have, that we don't know? We always think of what we have here versus what they have there, and maybe we see ourselves as more free. But I think the undercurrent of the argument after talking with these women is that they recognized in me a deep hunger and need to fulfill myself as a woman that I was desperately trying to get at, as bad as they were, desperately trying to get at that even with all my freedoms, it was difficult to get at that. And with all their wars, it was difficult to get at, you know. So I just felt like we were absolute equals in our quest for fulfillment and fullness as women. And I think that what's really at stake for me in the play is that this cycle that we see in the play, we just keep circling around time frames. Is it 1993? Is it this war? Is it the 1991 war? Is it the Iran war? I mean, all these things that have been happening in Iraq, it's just evolving in the play. I think what's really at stake is when are we going to balance the masculine with the feminine? Or we just keep revolving, not evolving.
What comes through in the script is this constant return to almost ambivalence. And one of the characters, Huda, says, we might prefer chaos to cruelty.
Yeah.
And that there is now chaos and the cruelty, some of the cruelty you describe in that play, it's almost hard to read it, much less live it. And yet the chaos is also very destructive.
I agree. I think that by showing all these different sides of different characters, what we get is that it comes right down to each individual human being, how they feel about it. I mean, if somebody lost all their family to Saddam Hussein, they'd be on one side of the issue. If somebody didn't lose anybody to Saddam's regime but lost 8 members of their family during the occupation, they might be on another side of the issue. Iraqis, the general population of Iraqis are unbelievably balanced in their way to understand that violence happens and that...
What do you mean by that, balanced?
Well, they're able to see a lot of really gruesome and bad things happening around them and know that if they survive it, they can have a better life and not lay a whole lifetime of blame on one side or the other. Either Saddam ruined us forever and we'll never have a chance, or look how America's bombed out half of our city and, you know, how are we ever gonna, they didn't protect us from the looting or the, you know, I mean, they really, for the most part, don't take those sweeping sides of that's all wrong and that's all wrong, you know. They're able to lose a great deal and fight their way back to what do I need to do to live today and make this better.
And I mean, New York City has been one of the cities where the anti-war sentiment has been the strongest. What's the reaction of the audiences that are coming to see this play?
Well, I think they don't quite know what hit them. To be honest, I mean, people say, oh, you're doing the play in New York, you're preaching to the converted, and I say, well, no, they're not the converted. They didn't know anything that I just told them. They know some of the facts, but they don't know these women. They've never met women like this. They've never met an Iraqi woman like this, drinking whiskey and talking about Saddam and people being hung up. You know, I mean, they've never met that. They've never met a painter who's having affairs. I mean, they haven't met these Iraqi women, and I think that after we work their guard down and then get into the real underbelly of these circumstances, they walk away moved. shaken up and not being able to stand on one side or the other.
Was that your intention?
Well, maybe. I mean, my intention was to get them to absolutely feel as if they were in the shoes of Iraqi people, to feel at one with them, that there was absolutely no difference, to get them to feel the nature of the chaos of being there, to get them to literally feel like they're standing in the crossfire of all these diverging ideas. What would they think? What would they do? So I guess in a way it was to
get the complexity out there.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing simple.
But in the flesh, not in their brains. It's not of use if it's up here. That's why it's theater rather than something they can read and digest. I mean, I want the audience to walk out with these ideas fighting in their flesh, not in their brains.
How long did it take you to write this play?
Maybe a year of writing on and off. I never wrote full time. Didn't have the luxury. And then probably 2 years of, after bits were written, staging and, oh, that doesn't work, and going back and staging and, so probably 2 years of.
Can you imagine somebody else doing this one-person play?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you going to tour the play?
I am.
Where?
Well, we're going to Los Angeles first, to the Geffen Theater, and then Berkeley Rep, and hopefully there's Seattle, Chicago, DC, Philly, areas like that. So.
And that means it closes wherever, I mean, that means it will close in New York, or will somebody else continue it?
It is closing for sure May 22nd, so anybody that wants to see it has to see it now. Yep, and soon, yes.
You think of yourself as an actor, primarily. And what about being a playwright?
I love it. I really love it. And I will write another play. It's been a phenomenally rewarding process. Also, I feel like I know so many things about Iraq, and yet am so American that I'm perfectly placed to write about things about Iraq for Americans. And I think that the ideas aren't finished there yet. There's so much more to say and really get at. So I think there has to be another play or two about Iraq in there, yeah.
Could this play be performed in Iraq?
It could be. It could be, and I think it might be very challenging material, even for Iraqis. Iraqis here find it challenging as well. Although Iraqis are so able to speak for themselves that if they wanted the play, that would be that would be fine. But I think that they're in the process of creating their own theater. They always have done, and they always will. And I feel like that's really their space, their time, and that their voices needed to be heard from them as well.
Under Saddam Hussein, was there theater?
Absolutely there was theater, yeah. I mean, you couldn't say anything bad about Saddam, but you could allude to it. It could be poetic, and if he didn't catch it, you'd be fine, But yes, there was theater.
But the stakes could be high if he caught it.
The stakes could be very high if he caught it, and I think that the theater now is going to be full of people really saying what they think.
Talk a little bit about theater and where you see it going as a whole art form in this country.
Wow. I don't know. I'm a bit disillusioned by it myself.
Why?
In doing this play, I realized how much it takes to make a play successful financially. And I have the best producer I could want. I mean, it's been amazing, but I also realized that we charge $60 a ticket. And I know that most of the people I would walk down the street and go, please come see my show, might not have $60 to go see my show. And I think that it's impossible for a $60 a ticket show to compete with a $10 movie theater ticket. And if I were to spend my time writing and working in a medium, I would rather have it be seen by, hundreds more people for $10 a ticket, because they'll see it. I know that if this play were on TV and it hit people in their living rooms, it would affect so many more people, and so many more people that need to see it, people that are used to seeing the war on TV. And they, they could click a channel and then see radical Iraqi war. I think that, so I don't know. I don't know what theater's holding.
Well,
honestly.
I think this, again, having not seen it but have read the script, I think this could be on the TV easily.
Yeah.
Have any of the TV channels had any interest?
I don't know that it's on their radar yet, so I'm hoping to get it on their radar before May 22, or at least when I go to Los Angeles. There's
Right.
more
Yeah.
film and TV people out there, so that's an option. And radio is an option. I think it would work brilliantly
Yes, I
on
agree.
radio.
Because reading the script,
Yeah.
it is so powerful, not even seeing the images that are reading on,
Yeah.
I think you're really right about
Yeah.
that. Well, good luck to
Thank
you.
you.
I'm sorry we're out of time. My thanks to Heather Raffo for joining us. You can get to know 8 women of Iraq and 1 Iraqi American, all played by Heather Raffo. Her play, 9 Parts of Desire, at the Manhattan Ensemble Theater on Mercer Street, is going on right now as we're taping Tuesday through Sunday, but as you said, it's going to be closing. For the City University Graduate Center and Women to Women, I'm Frances Deegan Horowitz.